Hello YouTube vintage stereo collectors and restorers. Here's the Kenwood KA-2002 early 70s, just finished recapping the main board. The red Worth capacitors, which I find are a nice neutral sounding capacitor, long life, and they withstand heat well. There are other great capacitors. There's lots of great capacitors, and there's some that aren't so great. And I think a lot of times it just comes down to where they were made. What I want to say about this one was, this is a pleasure to work on, this little amp. Basically, most of the circuitry is on the one board, and there's a little plate you take off underneath to get at it. I'm just not going to flip it over right now. The only downside on this design is these stakes that have zip gun. The wires are sort of twirled on. That's something that was tried in the 70s. Believe me, I know about these zip gun things. I'm not going to touch them because it's on, but those little stakes, if you want to call it, they're soldered on at the bottom and then twirled on at the top. Those used to be used in switching offices when I was at the phone company from about 71, 72 era, which is exactly what this is. You carried a remover and a gun to put it back on. And to be honest, you're better off soldering, because sometimes just the act of spinning it on weakened it. And so you'd spin it on, you'd have a connection, you'd walk away a day later, the circuit's open. And just the way it twisted on. But anyway, these all seem to be solid. I resoldered them from underneath. Now what I'm looking for, I'll tell you exactly what I replaced in this one. Main filter cap. Now, hope you can catch that right there. All those caps. There's the main filter, 2250 volt. A minor upgrade up to 3363 volt, because the voltage is very close to 50 when it idles. Output transistors had already been replaced, and they had good grease under them, so we'll leave those in. I replaced all the C458s, the noisy ones, those outhouse style capacitors. They all had black leg disease. Now the transistors, the C732 that's in the output, driving the output, those don't have black leg disease, and they seem to be just fine. They're original, and I'll tell you what I'm getting on this. I'm just going to put on the headphones. With the volume control down, you can't even tell this amp is on. That's how quiet the noise floor is. I have an input on the tuner. Sounds great, just coming from a tuner offside here. Put it in the phono without anything hooked up. Just hiss on the two channels. When it came to me, it was doing the typical thing you get with noisy C458s, major crackling. So that's good. If I just put it, for instance, on the tape monitor, I can turn it up to 10. I can't tell the difference between 10 and 0. That's how quiet it is, with 3 stages worth of C458s replaced and the new caps. It's just, this thing is so quiet. The music almost emerges out of the darkness. These are quite nice to listen to. And it's one of these cases here, and I might get audio snobbed over this because it's happened to me a couple times recently. This is an entry-level unit, but it has much of the design, engineering, and technology of much larger units and more powerful. And you can actually see this very board, this very topology, on many Kenwoods like the 4006 as you go up the ladder. And what's different? Heavier duty outputs, bigger transformer, bigger filters. But the basic preamp for the phono is much the same in this model range amongst them all. It's basically 2 transistors per channel. And That's why I've always been like, there were so many of these sold back in the day. And this is what I noticed. You can still get something like this at a very reasonable price, put a few parts into it, and really have something that you listen to and you go, wow, isn't that a nice unit? It's dead quiet at idle, has nice sound, beautiful bass because it has quasi-complementary circuitry. It's capacitor coupled. I doubled the value from 1,000, where are these here, 1,000 microfarad to 2,200, and they're kind of tucked in behind the faceplate. You can't really see it in the camera, but I boosted those. That's about as big as I would go with those. And it just has a nice, mellow, neutral sound. These are really enjoyable. And to me, there's still, I just like promoting affordable audio. But I was talking to somebody recently and they were sort of, well, I only deal with higher end components. I only listen to them because they're much superior in construction. It just seemed to be, it's something I've heard over and over again, like almost 50 years, believe it or not. I'm just going to do a quick check of the idle current. That's the only thing you really have to check on this one. The sun's going behind a cloud out there. Let's see if we can get the light. The idle current is right here. This is, that would be the left channel, 12.6. That's actually exactly where I set it. Be careful, these don't short. 6.7. So I had set it both channels to 12, but of course I replaced some caps and transistors, so I'm just going to put that one up around there. And these bias pots, they're like just, they turn perfectly. And I think it's this one didn't really get, it wasn't in a high dirt environment. The boards were very clean. I'm just going to set it to 11.8, right around 12, and just let it run for a while, so make sure everything's okay. The other one's at 11.9. That's all there is on this one to set. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit more about the audio snobbery, and lately capacitor snobbery. And it's just, maybe snobbery is not the right word, but people have their opinions and they seem to be set in stone. One of these things, and this, I'm opening a huge can of worms here, but one of these things, somebody mentioned to me that, why are you wasting time recapping such a low-end piece? I'll tell you why. They sounded awesome when they were new, and they sound awesome when they're old. And so far, I'm into this one for about $160 Canadian. Except for my labor, of course, but between buying it and the parts. And it's something, you can listen to it all day. I'm going to use it to drive a Dynaco Stereo 120, which is a separate power amp, because this is an entry-level unit. There's a switch on the back as a pre-in, pre-out, which is really cool. So I can actually plug the Dynaco into the switched outlet, plug the input to here, and use it on that big grunty Dynaco. Should be an interesting combination. We'll see it in action shortly. But somebody was saying, well, you know, why would you even bother spending the money on it? And there's nothing wrong with those original capacitors. Well, the difference, and this is all I can say, you're going to have to take my word on it, the difference in the way this sounds right now compared to when it showed up here with the original caps from 1972 is quite a bit of difference. It's, like I say, quiet. You can have it on an empty input all the way up to 10. There's barely even a hiss now. Before there was a lot of noise. There was also, when you turned it on in the right channel, it wasn't a control, it was one of the C458 transistors. So, you know, the big change is in how quiet the amp is. Another thing I noticed is it had sort of a thin sound, not much bass before. Now with those 2200s as the output caps and then being recapped and biased, it has a very warm taste. I'm thinking coffee again, right? It has a nice warm sound, and the bass seems to defy its size and its output of about 14 watts per channel. It definitely is worth it. It is a very discernible difference, and it'll last longer as well. And the whole idea is to keep them out of the landfill, because some of them just end up these days. I've taken some computer stuff to a recycler, and they go, "Oh, you should have seen what we had yesterday. This big Yamaha." I'm going, "What was it?" "Oh, I don't know. It was a wooden cabinet. It was really wide. It was about 30 pounds. Where is it? We ground it up." I just let my heart go, "Please." And he said, we don't even offer them for sale anymore because we get so few responses. I said, "Well, next time you get one of those, please call me. I will pay for it." Anyway, the one thing about audio, and just like your taste in music, okay, it's a very personal thing, and you're free to have your personal opinion. If you think you need to spend thousands and thousands and buy the latest streaming player to get the sound you want, go for it. If you're into buying stuff at garage sales and mixing and matching and trying different stuff all the time, go for it. It's the same axiom as with cameras, with music styles, everything. Thanks for watching and listening.